It's the middle of the month and it's time for more pickups. Now I did promise that I wouldn't be putting too much time into shelf fillers. There wouldn't be the 100 video game pickup episodes. And you know what, I think I've done quite well this month so far. But a big deal did come along and I would have been absolutely crazy not to jump on it. So if you want to see what I've picked up so far, then you just wait until after these. Hello friends and welcome back to Generation Pixel, and if you're new to the channel, well firstly, thanks for clicking on the video, and secondly, buckle yourself in because we're about to do pickups for June 2022. Now anyone who's followed the channel, well over the last maybe 18 months where I've seriously started collecting again, will know exactly how this goes. I will showcase all the new games first and then work my way back through time to get to that juicy retro at the end. Now for the most part that's exactly how this video is going to work, but with a slight caveat, because I did pick up one sort of bundle that I'm going to give a showcase all to itself. So let's start where we always start, and that's with the most current games, and that will be PlayStation 4. So the first two games that I picked up for the PlayStation 4 this month, well they're not so much new games coming into the collection as upgrades to games that I already have. And the first one in that ilk is Final Fantasy 15 Deluxe Edition. I picked this up because it's got a lovely steelbook in it, that's all there is to it. Everyone who's out there who watches this channel will know that I'm a big Final Fantasy fan, and when I got the opportunity to pick up this stunning steelbook, I had no option but to get it. So coming into the collection is Final Fantasy 15 Deluxe Edition in this wonderful steelbook case. And the second pickup for the PlayStation 4 is in the very same vein, because what I've picked up is the Final Fantasy X-10-2 Remaster, HD Remaster, but this time in this wonderful limited edition steelbook. And again, I don't need to explain the fact that I love the Final Fantasy series and I will pick up as much of it as I can get my hands on. Doesn't matter if it's just a slight variation or not, I am crazy enough just to pick up anything that says Final Fantasy on it, and I think some people out there know that. But coming into the collection, so happy to get this, the Final Fantasy X 10-2 on the PlayStation 4 HD Remaster Steelbook. Now the third game that I picked up isn't a game that I already have up there. Well, actually it is, and you'll get when I bring it up what it is, and it's Resident Evil 3, but the Resident Evil 3 remake that we got a couple of years ago. Now, I haven't played the second one which is up there, but now that I have these both in the collection, I'll probably set some time aside and play the new Resident Evil 2 and new Resident Evil 3 back to back. I absolutely loved Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3, Resident Evil Code Veronica. I loved them back in the day. I kinda lost interest in Resident Evil when Resident Evil 4 came out for, well, my own personal reasons, and if you want to talk about that you can do that down in the comments. But I'm quite sure a few of you out there already know my feelings on Resident Evil 4 and beyond. But getting this into the collection, it was a must, so very happy to get Resident Evil 3, the remake I suppose, into the collection. Now last up for the PlayStation 4 is a game that I absolutely locked into. It never happens. You go out there in the wild and sometimes you see something that just at a great price and you can't pass by. Now I wouldn't have passed this by anyway because it's Ys Origin and it's a collector's edition. Now I'll put up some sort of b-roll so you can see exactly what's in this. Now I haven't played the Ys games, well that's a minor lie. I've played about 2 or 3 hours of Ys Book 1 on the Core Graphics Mini that I picked up, and now that's an odd little RPG. It's got an odd little combat mechanic where you just run into the enemy and whoever has the least health dies first. But besides that, I wanted to pick up this just to see this because I'm assuming it's a remaster of the first books, the first games I suppose, and I had to get it into the collection. It's stunning, I'm dying to play it, and once I've got some time, because I'm also doing the 52 game challenge this year, so I'm playing as many games as possible. hopefully I can fit this in. I'm looking forward to seeing if this is a reimagining of that first game that I've dipped my toes into or not, but so happy to get Eve's Origin Collector's Edition into the collection. So moving away from the PlayStation 4, we're going down a generation to PlayStation 3. Now I have been saying for quite a while that I need to start collecting it a bit more for the PlayStation 3 because the prices are, oh, they're fantastic at the moment, and who knows how long that will last. Hopefully, crossing fingers, the whole COVID bubble is starting to deflate and other issues are going away, so video games maybe get down to a more palatable sort of price, but until then, who knows. But PlayStation 3 is definitely one that anyone who's interested in collecting for the first time should be looking at. And the first PlayStation 3 game that I'm adding to the collection, Heavy Rain. Now Heavy Rain is a game that I played in the past, I just don't have it in the collection. Well, I just didn't have it in the collection at the moment, and get used to that because I'll keep saying I don't have it in the collection when here it is in my hand. But no, that aside, Heavy Rain was a game that I played back in the day, I absolutely loved it, just didn't have it in the collection, and it's got to come back in. It's a wonderful and unique game, or at least it was at the time, and it's one I encourage anyone out there to go buy, give it a try. There's many ways to play it. You can play it on services online with PlayStation Now, which will be changing over soon as well, so hopefully it'll be on that. You would have to stream it on that because Sony, for reasons beyond my comprehension, are refusing to go down the lines of an emulator for PlayStation 3. But other than that, Heavy Rain's back into my collection and I'm more than happy to have it here. Next up was a game that I just picked up in a while because it was extremely cheap. It's PlayStation 3. PlayStation 3 prices are fantastic at the moment. It's a game that I know nothing about, it was just the aesthetic of the box art. And 9 out of 10 times if I see a decent piece of box art at a good price, I'll pick it up. And that game is Dark Void. Now, it's not one that I know about because I've never played it. I'll get round to it eventually. It looks fantastic. It's complete because I'm only really buying games in complete form for the collection, as most of us do anyway. But here's Dark Void coming into the collection. Now next up, we're staying on the same generation but we're moving to a different system. That system being the Nintendo Wii. Now I do kind of neglect a Nintendo Wii collection because as much as I love the system, there's only a handful of games that I truly enjoy playing on it. And I think this one is going to be one of those games. It's one I've never played before on the Wii, and it's CSI Deadly Intent. Now, I did play CSI games on the PC way back in the day. I say way back in the day, but it was hardly back in the day when you take into consideration we were playing games in the 80s. But back in the day, I did play the CSI games on the PC, thoroughly enjoyed them. They're great little sort of point and click adventures with a bit of investigation in them, and I heartily recommend anyone giving them a little try, even if it doesn't seem your cup of tea. But that's CSI Crime Scene Investigation Deadly Intent coming into the collection. Now next up, it's not a console game. Yes, we're going to have a bit of a throwback to the time when I was part of the card carrying PC master race, and the game that I picked up in the wild for absolute pennies and I couldn't resist because it's been a while since I've played any of these games, is The Sims, and this was The Sims Double Deluxe, so I'll have a proper look at what's in it. I know it's the original Sims game, which is without a doubt my favourite of them all. I have played Sims 2 and 3 and I went on to play Sims 4 on the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. They just don't have the same charm that the original Sims had back in the day. I'm hoping to recapture some of that and maybe get back into some sim life, because you know what, if you just need to kill a couple of hours or kill a couple of friends in a swimming pool because you've taken the ladder away, then having the Sims in your collection is no bad thing. So moving on, we're going down a generation and we're moving on to my home turf, the PlayStation 2. And as I've said in recent videos, I'm going to be winding in just how much shelf filler and stuff like that and just cheap throwaway games that I pick up, because it's time to start focusing on the stuff that I want into the collection rather than stuff that I might think I want. And I've done not too bad this month. Not every one of these games down here, and there are only about 8 I believe, are, you know, games that were must have but there's always a reason for buying them, even if they're not must-have games. And the first one, it was just purely because it was sitting alone, all by its lonesome, in a charity shop for 50p, and it's Chicken Little. Now, I know nothing about Chicken Little. I will get round to playing it because, you know what, these cutesy little, sometimes 3D platformers or 3D adventure games that come out, licensed games, I love a good licensed game as well, let's just face that straight away. Now, Chicken Little, I haven't seen the film, I haven't played the game, but 50p, sitting alone in the charity shop, it just had to come home with me. So Chicken Little is in the collection now. Now the next two PlayStation 2 games that I picked up, they weren't games that I would normally pick up by myself anyway, but a certain channel out there by the name of Back in the Day Gaming, run by the wonderful Jonathan Heiss, well, he puts out every Friday a first person shooter Friday video. Now, being Back in the Day Gaming, we're not talking about the latest Call of Duty or whatever that they're throwing out there at the kids at the moment. We're talking about games from the PlayStation 2 era, the N64 and even before that, wherever he can get his hands on them. And I have been thoroughly enjoying every one of those videos, and mainly because I can't play them myself, or at least I couldn't back in the day, because they gave me terrible motion sickness. But watching these videos, as I've said, has inspired me to get out there and maybe think about picking up a few good examples for myself and getting them up on the collection. And the first one that fell into that category is Medal of Honor Frontline. Again, haven't played it. I think I've seen Jonathan play this one. Don't quote me, I might not have seen it. I've seen so many of these first person shooters. But this one I believe he did play. And if you didn't, you know what? I'm going to give it a try, Jonathan. I'm going to see how long I can last before, well, I have to run to that toilet and
one down.
Empty the contents of my stomach, because that's what happens when I play there, or at least that's what did happen. So Medal of Honor Frontline coming into the collection for the very first time. Now the second first person shooter that I picked up isn't completely inspired by Back in the Day Gaming, no, I'm sorry about that, John, but more so because I've never seen this game before. Not out in the wild, I don't remember it from back in the day, and certainly haven't seen any videos on YouTube about it. And that game is Pilot Down Behind Enemy Lines. And as I says, I know nothing about this game. I saw it out in the wild, again in a charity shop for £1. I wouldn't have walked past it anyway, but this was a first person shooter that I know zero about. Yes, we all know our Call of Duties, our Modern Warfares, our Frontlines, our Battlefields, we know them. This one had no idea that it existed. And if Jonathan is out there watching this and he doesn't know anything about this, maybe he should hunt it down for himself and see if it's one for his first person Fridays. So next up for the PlayStation 2 was a game that I was actively hunting. A game that I was waiting to come into one of the local stores in Glasgow so I could pick it up and add it to the series, and that's Max Payne 2, The Fall of Max Payne. I haven't played any of the Max Payne games. The first one, I know everything about it. I mean, everyone who is a gamer knows everything about it, or should do anyway by now. I mean, I've just recently watched Hapesa Games reviewing Max Payne, and go and check that out as well if you get the chance, because it's fantastic. But Max Payne 2 was the one that was missing from my collection, and now that I have them all in there, I have promised everyone that knows that I haven't played these games that I will set aside some time and get through these. I have been assured they're not overly long and they will fit into the 52 game challenge quite nicely, or hopefully, depending on my gaming skill I suppose. But anyway, Max Payne 2, The Fall of Max Payne, into the collection. So next up for the PlayStation 2 is a game that I just stumbled across again. It's not one that was on my radar, it's one that I know nothing about, but what drew my attention to this, other than the box art and what the game sort of suggests it is the fact that the developers and publishers kind of piqued my interest. Now that is Evergrace on the PlayStation 2. Now yes, it's a Ubisoft game and not everybody's the biggest fan of Ubisoft. For me personally, they haven't done too much wrong, nothing that I would cut them off for. But on the back, if you also notice, and you know what, I'll maybe try and get that zoomed in for you, but you'll see that lovely From Software in there. So a From Software Ubisoft game, I don't know what it's going to be like. It sort of strikes me as an RPG of sorts, so who knows. But that's Evergrace coming into the collection. Now next up is a game that I wasn't actively hunting again, and I know I keep saying that I'm trying to go for the games that I'm after, but every now and again there's so many games out there that one will come your way that you'll walk past one and remember, oh, I really need that in the collection, and that was one of these games. And that is Death by Degrees, the Nina Williams game from Tekken. Now I haven't played it, I've seen a little bit of gameplay on YouTube. I know it's not supposed to be a terribly good game, but this it's just like a historic game. Games like this that spawn from the one-on-one beat-em-ups, you can't beat them, or beat them up I suppose. But Death by Degrees, the Nina Williams game, I'm so happy to get this in the collection. And very much like the last one, it was a game that I didn't realise I wanted in the collection. I didn't even know that it was out there for the PlayStation 2. And someone else showed this game off. It was Goldtooth Gaming, but not on the PlayStation 2. He done it in that green spine machine, the Xbox. But the game I'm talking about that I didn't know was out there, that was a must buy when I saw it, was Spy vs Spy. Now I doubt this will be anything like the Spy vs Spy that I played back on the ZX Spectrum back in the 80s. There's no way it's going to be like that. It's going to be all 3D and probably janky as all hell. But Spy vs Spy was such an important game back, for me anyway, back in the day, that I had to buy it when I found out there was a PlayStation 2 version of the game. I hope it's good, but regardless, Spy vs Spy is in the collection. So last up for the PlayStation 2, we have a game that I was actively seeking, a game from a series that I want to have the whole series of, and I think I've managed to pick up the first one first. Now if I'm wrong, you can correct me in the comments, but I did get my hands on Disgaea, Hour of Darkness. Now these are fantastic little strategy games. They're great fun, they're a little bit quirky, as they should be, but as I said, this was one that I was actively seeking. Couldn't be happier that I found it out there in the wild, and that is Disgaea, Hour of Darkness, into the collection. Now we're moving away from the PlayStation 2, down a generation to the PlayStation, and I've picked up one game for the PlayStation. I'm not collecting heavily for the PlayStation at the moment. I do have a selection of games that I love and will always be in the collection. There are a selection of games that I want back into the collection, and this is an example of it, and it cost me £2.80. Now it cost me £2.80 not because that's what they were selling it for in the place I was in. No, I had some trade credit, and the trade credit that I had was accumulated from eBay bundle buys, where I had seen a game in a bundle that I wanted for the price that they were charging for the whole bundle, trade in the stuff that I don't need. So because, well, if you do things like that, it will help your collection. And I picked up Dino Crisis 2, which will sit lovely up there beside Dino Crisis, and probably never see Dino Crisis 3. It might, I don't know, but as far as I'm concerned, 1 and 2, it's a bit like the Godfather movies. There's only 1 and 2 in my book, and that's both of them there in the collection now. Now before I move on to what I hinted as a sort of special section at the end, I have one more pickup to show, and it is the oldest game that I have picked up. It's a game from 1989. It's a sealed game from 1989, and it's a game for the ZX Spectrum, and that is Obliterator. Now Obliterator is not a great game by all accounts, and if you want to check out videos on it, go and check out Retrobait and Ginger Hippie Gaming. They both picked up copies of this sealed maybe 2 or 3 months ago, unsealed them, played them, hated the game. But when you get the opportunity of a sealed game from 1989 for a system that you absolutely adore, the ZX Spectrum, the finest of the 8-bit microcomputers, don't listen to anyone who tells you it's Commodore, then you just have to buy it, and that's what I did. So Obliterator sealed is in the collection, but will it be sealed for long? You'll just have to stay tuned for that. So let's move on to the special segment, the deal of the month. Well, it's probably going to be the deal of the year or even the decade for me. And yes, I've stumbled upon some wonderful things for great prices, but I don't think I'll quite get a deal like this again in a long time now. This was a friend who was moving on some stuff that he didn't want. He knows obviously that I collect video games, that I love video games, and he gave me the opportunity to buy them. This bundle anyway, for a very good price. Now I'll show you the first couple of things that were in the bundle, and of course I'll be cutting to plenty of b-roll to give you proper close-ups of certain things, but we have a Soul Calibur 2 in the GameCube and Pokemon Colosseum on the GameCube. Now, yes, they're fantastic games, and you know what, I'll just lead with the price. The price that I paid for this was £90. Now, if you want to do the conversions into either US dollars, Canadian dollars, or Australian, or wherever you're from, then feel free to do it. I might even pop some up here for you, but £90 is what I paid. So those two games, but along with those two games, there was a bundle of loose games as well, and the loose games, well, I'll just read these off for you and show you some b-roll. I have WarioWare Inc. Well, I never played it, so I don't really know what it's about. We have Bloody Roar Primal. Again, Primal Fury. Again, these are games that I've never played. I've never been heavily into the GameCube. Yes, I do have one now. I mean, I've had one for years. I've just never get round to playing it. Sonic DX, or Sonic Adventure DX, which is a director's cut apparently. Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. Again, this is all new stuff for me, stuff that I've still to experience for the first time. Wave Race Blue Storm. Again, I've seen plenty of footage of people playing Wave Race, so I've got a fair idea about what that one's about. Carmen Sandiego, The Secret of the Stolen Drum. Now again, Carmen Sandiego, being from the UK, not such a big deal over here, but at least I'm aware of the Carmen Sandiego franchise, so looking forward to that one. Then of course The Legend of Zelda, The Ocarina of Time, so looking forward to diving into a Zelda library. I haven't spent a lot of time on Nintendo consoles or Nintendo games, as most of you will know if you follow the channel, but the Zelda games are just too important for me to miss out on, and I am starting to build up a decent catalogue of Zelda games to go through. And we have Billy Hatcher. Again, it's a game that I've seen in various stores from time to time, but I know nothing about it. It looks a bit of fun, and I'm sure it will be when I get round to playing it. Now, Samurai Jack was one that I was actually quite happy to get, because yes, you get it on the PlayStation 2. It looks like a fun little game, and the reason I know it looks like a fun little game is because I watched 3 Drinks In play it not too long ago, and while they were playing it, I just said to myself, I have to get that game. And for this game then to be part of that bundle, well, that was a win-win for me. Then there was PNO3, or Project Number 3. Again, this is a game that I've seen being played quite recently, because as I've said, I don't have a great deal of experience with the Nintendo consoles or software, but I'm trying to get into it as much as I can. And this was one of the games that I saw, and I forget who played it, but whoever it was, if you get back to me in the comments, I'll thank you properly there. But PNO3, Project Number 3 is one that I definitely wanted to get my hands on, and here it is now. And then there was Killer 7, yet another game, a game that I watched heaps of games playing not too long ago, and I was desperate to get my hands on it. And for that, again, to end up being in this bundle, it was unbelievable. The amount of money, what, £90 is absolutely nothing for games these days. And then you just have to add to the formula that that's some of the games that you really wanted in the collection. It was just mind-blowing going through this. And last but not least, Super Bust-A-Move. Now, I love the Bust-A-Move games back on the PlayStation, and I know I'm going to love them on the GameCube as well, so looking forward to spending some quality arcade time on a machine, because it's something that I don't do a great deal anymore. Spend way too much time in long RPGs and great big open worlds, so having a nice little arcade experience to drop into is always a wonderful thing. So £90 for that selection of games. I thought I was doing really well, but it didn't end there, because there was more than just the games. Because also in the bundle was included this, well, GameCube. Now, I do have a GameCube, I've had one for many years, but a GameCube was included in the bundle. But not only a GameCube, but at the bottom, as you might notice, we have the Game Boy player at the bottom, and yes, the disc is there as well. I have the disc and the player. So that was a GameCube, something like 13 games, the Game Boy player and the Game Boy player disc, all for £90 cash. Now, I can't thank my friend enough for the deal that he cut me on that GameCube bundle. It was just absolutely phenomenal, and it blew me away. But there we go, that was the end of the big bundle, the surprise bundle that I got this month, and I hope it was an interesting bundle for you to watch being revealed. Now, I don't know a great deal about the Nintendo games. Sometimes I don't know a great deal about the PlayStation 2 games either, because, you know, that's the games that I hunt. So if you want to talk about any of these games, then drop that down in the comments, because the interaction between you and me is the most important thing in YouTube, well, for me anyway, and I can't stress that enough. I think I got a fairly decent selection of games into the collection this month, and I'm looking forward to getting more in the future. As I've said, I'm trying not just to go for everything that I see. I'm trying to focus on the things I want. There are a few big hitters, a few holy grails out there that I want into the collection, or I want back into the collection, because let's face it, we've all got games that we've given away at some point in our life that we've totally regretted. Suikoden 2 for example, but I'll get there eventually. They're out there. It's not like they're rare, they're just pricey, and eventually they'll come back into the collection. Thank you all very much for watching this recent pickups video, and until next time, as always, cheerio!